So first things first, JP, how are you?
It's 9 a.m. I'm just getting my morning started. Um, I've had slightly too little caffeine to feel like a full human, but I'm still very much looking forward to speak with you.
That's excellent. So I'll try and start easy then. Do you remember what the first album was that you ever bought?
I don't, I'm not sure if I can confidently say this was the first, but just for the sake of nostalgia, I think one of the first albums I ever bought was Continuum.
Okay. Now, I just before this interview watched a clip of you playing with John Mayer on I think it's the Late Show or one of those evening shows. So what was it about John Mayer? And obviously he's an excellent guitarist, but what did you like about his songwriting?
Yeah, I think Continuum was the first experience I ever had with lyrics that could punch you in the heart. I remember that feeling very vividly as a teenager. And I remember thinking, I want to do that. I want to make people feel with songs what that just made me feel.
Were there any particular songs?
Stop This Train, Slow Dancing in a Burning Room, Dreaming with a Broken Heart, Vultures. That whole album is a masterpiece, in my opinion.
So if we very quickly flash forward to a couple of weeks ago, where he's not only playing on your album, but also you performed with him on that show. What does that mean to you?
It was entirely surreal, and as much as I was freaking out, the 17-year-old me trapped inside of me was just entirely losing his shit, like running circles around my chest, screaming at the top of his lungs with enthusiasm. It was a really special full circle moment. When I'm playing the B3 organ and he's playing the potentially the best guitar solo I've ever heard. I'm biased, but I think it was a pretty spectacular guitar solo. And I'm flashing back to being in high school and skipping class to go jam with my friends on Gravity. And that was like the moment in my head as I'm now jamming with John Mayer. It was very cool.
Well, going back to that moment when you were still in high school, then when did you start putting thoughts onto paper?
I think the first written notes I have of songs were around that time, 16, 17. I didn't write a song I loved till I was 24.
Okay. How would you describe the songs that you've written from age 17 to 24 then?
Uh, the path along the way. I think I think the most significant barrier between people and their best work is the fear of not doing their best work. And I think, spending 7, 8 years writing bad songs, those that pile of dirt, those dirt songs became the soil in which my eventual good songs could grow.
I don't know if you ever do, but when you hear songs from that period, could you kind of hear or could you kind of tell what you were trying to do and just didn't have the capabilities to do so yet? Or was it just you had to reframe your whole kind of musicality?
There were a couple pretty critical mentality shifts I had as a writer. And I think one of the most significant ones was, it's simple, but I used to think about it like this. Okay, here's what I'm feeling. How do I capture that in a song? And then I went, here's what I'm feeling. That's the song. So rather than trying to turn them into lyrics, just say exactly what it is. That was a critical shift. The conversation is the song. I think that mentality is what kind of started the eventual era of writing that I liked enough to share.
Because that I read that sincerity is kind of key for what you do in songwriting. So realizing that and then having to be open enough to allow yourself to write those things. What was that transition like?
I mean, I think every career comes with its professional hazards, and I think if the worst professional hazard I need to navigate is the ramifications of being overtly honest at all times, then I will make that trade-off in order to make songs for a living, which is still fucking bonkers to me. That could be my job.
Well, you mentioned kind of that those two moments, you listening to Continuum and playing Gravity and all that stuff, and then later playing with John. So when you were still in high school, what did you imagine of a career in music?
You know, I was rather confused in high school. I was also such a nerd. I was not popular at all. I was very insecure. I was very shy. So the idea of a music career seemed rather elusive, just in that I couldn't imagine I would ever be someone that many people wanted to listen to justify a music career, because no one in my class wanted to fucking listen to me. Why would people around the world want to listen to my songs, you know? But so in high school, it was like, you know, I liked making music, but I also I wanted to work for charities, and I thought I would go to school for anthropology, and none of those things happened. But it wasn't, you know, I like many young people found that the things that I was insecure about, the things that I was made fun of for, ended up being the things I built my career on. You know, when I was 15, I was made fun of for, you know, singing, being in choir. I was made fun of for being a ginger, and I was made fun of for being too sensitive.
Wow.
And now I've built my entire career on being a singer, being a ginger, and being too sensitive.
Well, a couple of things about that, because I also wrote some lyrics down, and then from the debut album, so maybe we can delve into those. But first, because what I find interesting then is you say it took you about a couple of years to write songs that you were proud enough to share. But then what you did earlier in your career was mostly writing for others, less so putting yourself in the foreground. So when did that mindset change?
I wrote a song called The Few Things. This would have been in 2017. And I did it when I was supposed to be writing for a big pop group. I was at the studio, and my buddy Chris is like, yo, can you come into Studio A? We're working on this record for Fifth Harmony. And I said, no, I can't, because I have to finish this song for myself, which at the time was just a pretty unimaginable decision to make. And seemed like he was like, oh, okay, do your thing. But I just think in that, whatever confidence I found in that one moment to think, no, this is a song I have to finish. That I can kind of pinpoint that moment as when I knew it had to be my own voice in these songs that I was chasing after.
Yeah, because I can imagine what went through your mind as you listened to your songs or songs that you had helped written being performed by others. What kind of experience is that?
Well, I've never written a song for anyone else that felt like it could have been my song.
Okay.
And I think that's, you know, there's a lot of incredible songwriters who, when you hear other artists singing their songs, it very much feels like it's still their voice. It's still the songwriter's voice. When I write for others, I can't imagine any song I've ever written for anyone else having been a song I put out.
Okay.
Just like I can't imagine any song that I put out being a song for anyone else.
Right. Well, fair enough. Well, and the other thing I liked about what you said about high school is when things are rough, and then, like you said, you didn't necessarily see a career in music. You had other things you wanted to do, and you got some resistance from people around you. What kept you going? What is the thing? Because you are here. So what kept you going? What kept that passion or that drive?
I've always been a very curious person. I've always been easily enchanted by the things around me. And I think every every part of the process from, when I graduated high school. I didn't go to college. So after I graduated high school, I spent 4 months traveling, and then, I was living by myself with friends in Toronto. And by that point, I felt like, I had a little bit more confidence in myself, and then had this random opportunity to move to LA and thought, why not? I was lucky to be a dual citizen, so I could just live in America. I grew up in Toronto, Canada.
Right.
And I don't know, I remember, being 19 and sleeping out of my car and, going to every open mic I could find in Los Angeles and trying to make friends so I could sleep on their couch that night. And it, like that, supposedly, quote unquote, the struggle, but it was such a fucking adventure. Like I was having so much fun. And essentially since then, every step of the process has felt like an adventure. So how did I stick with it? It didn't really, it always felt, even though it was scary, it always felt a little bit more exciting than it was scary.
Right. Oh, that's very good then. That's very well. About that, what is one thing that you've learned from that period of doing all those open mics and kind of trying to establish yourself as a musician as well?
What have I learned? I think I was lucky to learn early that the most important community you can have as an artist is other artists, other songwriters. I think it's a common mistake coming up to think the connections you need are like A&Rs or people at record labels or people at publishers or people. The connections you need are your peers. That those are the most meaningful, most influential community connections I ever made, were just the people getting up before and after me at the open mics.
That's some good advice, I think. Now, kind of moving towards the album, because and going back to songwriting as well. On line by line, there is a line: "The truth don't scare me," in the melody. So when you mentioned sincerity, were you able to tap into that quite easily as you wrote these songs for the new album or for the debut album?
So my process with these songs was, they all started as journal entries.
Okay.
Because I find if I'm thinking about the song already when I'm writing, if like I have an audience member in my head, I'm not quite as candid. But if I just write in my journal as if I'm talking to myself, I don't have any of the reservations of how it's going to be perceived. And I'm able to be a lot more truthful. So that was a huge part of the process, just allowing myself to write without thinking about anyone ever hearing it.
When you delved back into that journal, then were there things that you were surprised by or that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I use this journal app and it will give me notifications like, on this day 2 years ago, you wrote this. And there's a song on the album, it's actually track 5, I Shouldn't Be Here, was a poem I had written in my journal 3 years ago now. But about a year ago, my journal gave me that 2 years ago today, you wrote this notification. And that poem pops up and I read it and I just thought it was so obnoxious. But it made me laugh. So have you seen the show Fleabag? Random segue, but have you seen the show Fleabag?
I don't think so.
Great show. I highly recommend it. So I was watching the interview with Phoebe Waller-Bridge, this amazing artist, director, actor. And she said that she knows if a scene needs to stay in an edit if the scene scares her a little bit, because if it scares her, that means it's vulnerable enough to, be the good stuff, be the real stuff. And this was the same day I just read that poem, and I was like, well, shit, I think I might have to make a song out of that poem. So I picked up my guitar, I put it to melody. It was the most natural melody that came out at first. And the next day I recorded it live, and actually sitting right here. I'm in the studio. So I literally set up a mic on me and the guitar, played one take, and that's the version on the album.
Okay. And is that kind of how it generally goes for the musical side of songs then, that you want it to be as pure or as raw as you try the lyrics to be?
No, there are varying degrees of time it takes to get it right on the musical side of things. Like, I Shouldn't Be Here. Yeah, that's a guitar, single vocal, live take. What keeps me from it is also a piano vocal live take, but I played it 50 times before I got the emotion of it. I Shouldn't Be Here, I played once. You know, Tension, we probably produced 30 different times before we got it right. But, you know, a song like, I'm trying to think what song got produced pretty quick. I mean, a song like Dangerous Levels of Introspection, you know, Greg Kurstin produced that. And it's pretty damn close to the original demo he sent over.
What I was thinking of when you just said it, when you write so many songs, because I believe you wrote way more songs than ended up on the album. So do you know beforehand kind of what you want out of an album, and especially this being the debut album?
No, I don't, because I usually don't have a sense of what I'm going to write about until I start writing.
Okay.
It's like kind of a process of showing yourself to yourself, making this music. Every one of these songs showed me a bit of myself that I didn't really fully understand. You know, there's 5 years of my life on this album, so there's a lot of different emotional eras going on.
Right, and writing about these relationships, past relationships, current relationships, and all the intricacies and emotional things that is involved with. Does it help?
Does what help?
Does it help writing about these things, and then kind of does it help you figure out not only yourself but being in a relationship? Or
it's a double-edged sword, because I'll speak to the songs that are about painful emotions.
Okay.
There's songs on here about love, there's songs on here about joy, there's songs on here about loss and grief, there's songs on here about supporting a friend, there's songs on here about heartbreak. But I'll speak specifically to the songs about heartbreak, because I think that's what people often think is a remedy to be able to write about it. At first, if you have a feeling inside of you that you don't want or that is unpleasant, having that feeling put into a song takes it out of you a little bit. It's now that feeling is in something outside of your chest, and that can be cathartic. But in the same way that song is the thing that took the feeling out of you, fast forward a year, and now the song is the thing that puts the feeling back into you when you're over it. So it's both.
This reminds me of a line from Dangerous Levels of Introspection, ruining a moment with some reckless nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
So is that kind of going back when you should be kind of present in the moment, you go back to those because of those songs, or if you hear it, you go back to those?
Yeah, I mean, I think the songs can be a part of it, but also just I think it's a very human thing. All of my friends do this. You know, when you're thinking back on, you know, a previous time in your life, you're not giving yourself an accurate representation of the memory. You're either glorifying it or you're, you know, or you're glorifying it or you're forgetting all the good parts. There's very rarely like accurate, you know, memory visiting. So ruining a moment with some reckless nostalgia, I think, is just is me trying to be self-aware about the fact that if I get too caught up in romanticizing being 21 and stumbling around Los Angeles, I forget that at the moment I'm living that kid's dreams. And if that kid knew that upon achieving his dreams, I would be dreaming about being him again, he'd call me a dumbass.
Well, if we talk about ambition and success then, because when you have certain dreams, I suppose once you reach them, the bar is going to be set higher, or that bar is going to move. So how do you see success, and how do you see what you want to do within music or within your own creativity?
I think I'll know I have achieved my goals when I am on a festival stage somewhere, like a Glastonbury or a Pink Pop. Pink Pop's in the Netherlands, right?
Yes, yeah.
Pink Pop. So I'll know I have achieved success when I'm on stage at Pink Pop and I have an upright piano back to back with Chris Martin's upright piano. And Chris Martin and I at back-to-back upright pianos do a medley of If the World Was Ending and Yellow, except I sing Yellow and he sings If the World Was Ending in front of like 80,000 people. That's how I'll know I've made it.
What is the closest that you have come to that moment so far?
I'm not sure we've gotten close to that moment.
But especially after a year or year and a half without being able to perform live, is that kind of it's maybe too generalizing, but is that kind of why you do it? That being on stage and sharing it with people, is that kind of the crux of it?
Yeah, I mean, the last year and a half has been has really changed my music career. You know, a lot more people have a relationship with my songs than they did in 2019, but I haven't met any of them yet, you know, and it's hard to emotionally internalize a stream count. So yeah, I think part of the reason that's the vision in my head is that I've never performed for more than like 2,000 people. And even when I was performing for 2,000 people, I was doing it as an opener. Mm-hmm. So as a headliner, I've never really performed for more than 500 people, maybe less, maybe 400 people. So, you know, If the World Was Ending is a song that I'm aware has been streamed, you know, however obnoxious amount of times, but I've still never played it for more than 400 people singing along.
Right.
So it's hard to really own the fact that like shit's happening.
So now it's still just numbers on a page. You haven't had that direct connection yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, final question then. What do you hope as the world slowly is getting its shit together? What do you hope that will happen then? You have now just released your debut album, your first kind of big offering of a collection of music. So what do you hope this will bring you or allow you to do?
I mean, so many of the songs in this album are coming from private moments. You know, for the most part, every song on there is where my mind is, either with one person in a private moment or by myself in a private moment. But the joyful other side of that is when those private moments get to be something that connects me with people all over the world, and then I get to share that moment. So I think similarly, right now, the songs are meeting people in their private moments. You know, people are listening to these songs in their cars, in their bedrooms, like and I think that's beautiful because that is where the songs came from. But in the same way that it's cathartic for me to get into a room full of people and scream these songs, I'm looking forward to those people who are having the songs to themselves to then meet a few thousand other people and have a shared experience of those intimate moments together.
Right, that's a very interesting point. And then kind of to round off, because for Emily, that's one of those songs that is very easily shared with people, I would say, because it's such a positive message to a friend. What did the person? I don't know if it is an Emily that you wrote it for, because creative license and that kind of stuff. But what was their reaction when they heard the song?
Yeah, well, so Emily's one of my best friends, and I would not have named the song her name without asking her. So I had her very direct permission. And she loves the song. She loves it a lot. She's actually going to be on tour with me, selling merch and doing the VIP stuff. So I joke around with her that fans are going to want to take pictures with her as much as they're going to want to with me.
JP, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for caring.